Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome back for a late edition of Lunch Break Live with me, Ivana. And I'm sure you know what we're talking about today if you've kept up with news at all. We had an 11 a.m. press conference from the governor, Kay Ivey, where she announced that she was amending her safer at home order. That means a decent bit of changes that start next week. So today I'm joined by our own Mike Cason. Now, as you can see, this is not a live video of Mike. We had a little trouble getting his video in, but his audio is with us. So this is just Mike's byline picture. He is with us live audio, but just not video. So Mike is going to help us break it all down. He was at that press conference, and let's just get into it. So, Mike, you were there. We both have this order in front of us that has all of the changes. If you need to see that, it is retweeted in a thread of ours on the AL.com Twitter page, and we can get that here for you as well. If you have questions, as always, I'll be looking down, monitoring them. I'm assuming y'all will have a lot of questions today, so me and Mike are going to do our best to get all that answered for you. So, first of all, Mike, what is the biggest change in this new amended order that starts on Monday?
Well, lots of big changes, things that people have been waiting on for weeks, I guess. Restaurants can start serving people in their dining rooms now with restrictions. Barbershops and salons can be open with restrictions. Employees have to wear masks. Gyms and fitness centers can be open with restrictions. I noticed that clients won't be able to use the lockers or showers. The limit on beaches was relaxed. There's no more. There was a limit of gatherings of 10 or more. That's been done away with. So there's no limit on gatherings on the beach. Groups are still required to stay 6 feet apart. And the rule about no public gathering, non-work related public gatherings of 10 or more has gone away. There's no numerical limit now, but the rules, the guidelines of social distancing stay in place, but there's no limit on any particular size group. Which means,
go ahead.
I was going to say, which means one of the things that comes to mind is churches can, this goes into effect Monday, so it won't be in effect this Sunday, but churches will be able to resume services. But there are recommended guidelines for that.
Right. And I see we got a lot of people who's just now tuning on. Again, just so y'all don't get confused, Mike Cason, this is our AL.com Montgomery reporter. We have got his audio live, just not his video. So he is talking to us. You can hear him live. You just can't see him live. And again, if you're new here, my name is Ivana. We're going over some of the changes to this amended safer at home order that goes into effect Monday. I am looking at y'all's questions. I'm jotting them down here so we can make sure we answer them. Mike gave us a brief overview. If you missed it, some of the highlights, I'm looking down at my paper to make sure I get this right. Some of our highlights are removing that 10-person limit on gatherings. So non-work gatherings are not restricted to a certain number of people as long as those people can maintain a 6-foot social distance from each other. Restaurants, bars, breweries are able to open with limited table seating, so that's 50% occupancy and 6 feet between tables. There's also additional sanitation and cleaning guidelines. Athletic facilities such as our fitness centers, our commercial gyms, they are also allowed to open. And something I have a question for you, Mike, on this order from the governor. It says that fitness centers and commercial gyms are able to open and they have social distancing guidelines, but with the restaurants, we heard that specific tables have to be 6 feet apart, etc. With gyms, we're just seeing that, at least on this paper that I've got here, it just says that the gyms are subject to social distancing guidelines. Is there a strict occupancy level for gyms?
Yes, they're limited to 50% of the normal occupancy from the fire marshal guidelines. So that's like retail stores, limited to 50%. And
so we've got restaurants, gyms, and retail are all 50% at this point.
I would have to double check that on restaurants. You may be correct about that. I'm not seeing that in the order, but that
was something that the governor said during her press conference, but I don't see it in the order either. So we'll be sure to check that for all of y'all and get that on AL.com, which is the correct number. Because she did say that, but I'm with you, Mike. I don't see it on the paper. So,
of course, with the guidelines that they put in place, that it would be hard to have more than 50% because tables have to be 6 feet apart and no more than 8 at a table. So, like if you had a restaurant with booths, you'd have to have every other booth empty. So
that's right. If we're trying to keep tables away 6 feet away from each other, you're right. It might not even be 50% occupancy at some of these smaller boutique restaurants. That's a good point that you've made there. So getting into some of our questions here. People are asking about daycares. Is there any change to daycares in this amended order that starts on Monday?
No change in daycares. They're still allowed to be open, but they can't have more than 12 children in a room. But that's not changed.
Okay. So anybody asking about that, daycares are not changed from the original stay-at-home order, safer-at-home order that we've had going now for a while.
Right.
Another question, short-term rentals. I'm assuming that Susan asked this question. I'm assuming Susan is kind of meaning some of these beach rentals or Airbnb, different companies like that, or different rentals like that. Any word?
I don't know about that. No, I didn't see any specifics on rentals in the order. So I'd hate to say I might give some incorrect information.
Okay, we'll work on getting some information about that for you, Susan, about the short-term rentals. Does this apply to, this is from Denny, he or she asked, does this apply to restaurants in Jefferson County and City of Birmingham? That is a yes. We know that that Mayor Randall Woodfin said that he would not be speaking on this today. That will be next week. So, but again, this applies starting Monday. This does not go into effect today. You're not going to be able to go eat out at a restaurant tonight, this weekend, or even for Mother's Day. You got to wait till May the 11th, which is Monday, for these to start. Some other things that are allowed to open on Monday with occupancy guidelines is hair salons, nail salons, barbershops. We've heard a lot about that. We've heard a lot of owners of those places that were frustrated when retail opened and they weren't allowed to open. What are the guidelines on these salons and barbershops, Mike?
The employees, the barbers, the hairstylists, they have to wear masks when they're within 6 feet of clients. Let's see. I'm trying to see if there's other specific restrictions for them.
Yeah, y'all, we are getting this information, as we're getting it to you. So forgive us as we kind of go through our paperwork and get these answers to you. Mike, while you're looking at that, you're looking for those answers, I'm going to look through a couple of these questions that I know I can answer. Chris asked, when do you expect her to address bars and entertainment venues? Okay, so Chris, bars are included in the restaurant order that says they can open on Monday with limited seating, 6 foot between tables, and additional sanitation guidelines. Bars and breweries are included in that order. Now, entertainment venues such as nightclubs, theaters, and bowling alleys, those are still closed. I believe somebody, I do not remember his or her name, but somebody asked earlier on in the comments about movie theaters. Those are still closed. So bars, breweries, restaurants, open with guidelines. Entertainment venues like clubs and theaters, still closed. Hospital visitation. Any answers on that, Mike?
That's unchanged.
Got it.
They still have the same restrictions on visitation at hospitals and nursing homes, which is very limited visitation allowed.
Okay.
Looking at the question earlier about salons, the only specific restrictions I see are employees shall wear a mask within 6 feet of a client, and employees shall wash their hands immediately before providing services within 6 feet of a client. So it looks like that's the only specific guidelines.
Well, that kind of helps answer another question that Ginger that Ginger gave us. She said, how do you do nails from 6 feet away? You're right, Ginger. I don't think they're asking you to. I think that they're saying if you are within 6 feet of your client, then they are asking that you be subject to these either glove or mask wearing practices. Can you repeat those practices, Mike?
Yes, and this says employees providing nail services or facial services are required to wear gloves when providing services within 6 feet of a client. So, so gloves are required for nail services and facial services. Masks are required for all employees in a salon or barbershop within 6 feet of a client.
Okay, I hope that answers y'all's questions there. Here's another good question about zoos. This commenter asked specifically about zoos and the OWA theme park, but any answers on that?
I don't see zoos mentioned in the order. Tourist attractions are still closed. I don't see zoos specifically listed.
I would assume that would maybe fall into the entertainment venues category or tourism category.
Yeah. Right.
So we're going to assume those are still closed and that's not changed. But if we hear any differently, we will let you know about that one. Some other things that are still closed that are not changing are educational institutions, which are still closed to in-person instruction. The daycare rules that we talked about earlier about the 12-person limit. Hospital and nursing home visitation. We had a couple questions about that. And like Mike said earlier, that is unchanged. Those rules are still strictly in place. Different questions about sports. We know that gyms and athletic facilities are able to open with restrictions. But specifically in this paperwork from the governor's office, it says that, quote, specified athletic activities are still not allowed. Mike, can you tell us what that means?
Yes, it's got a specific list. It says sports that involve interaction with another person of closer than 6 feet. So that would rule out basketball and I guess soccer and a lot of, I guess even baseball and softball. Activities that require shared sporting apparatus and equipment, and then activities on commercial or public playground equipment. So kids still can't play on the playground equipment in the park. Governor Ivey mentioned Little League baseball and softball and said that's one of the next things they'll be looking at. She said they'll be reviewing things and reconsidering things next week, although this order stays in effect until May 22nd. So perhaps that's in the next phase, but right. I don't know that.
Well, Leandra, I hope that answers your question about Little League. That's unchanged for right now. We're hoping to know a little bit more about that maybe next week. Again, this new amended Safer at Home order starts Monday and is in effect through May the 22nd, I believe. So these are some of the new things that are happening. There are an interesting question here that I'm getting about weddings. We know that these non-work gathering limitations have been called off. You can gather in any size as long as you can maintain 6 foot of distance. What does that mean for weddings?
Well, that opens it up for weddings because weddings were subject to the 10 or 9 or fewer limit before. So larger wedding gatherings would be allowed now with the guidelines encouraging people to practice social distancing. So that would also apply to funerals, church services, and other gatherings.
On size of gatherings. So I am assuming if you're able to have that funeral and maintain a social distance that you're able to do that. Like Mike said, we might have gone out on our streaming for a minute, but we were talking about weddings, funerals, things like that. This limit on gatherings, the size, number of people of gatherings has been lifted. So these gatherings are fair game. The governor does say in her order that these gatherings still must have 6 feet between people. So no matter what size you have, you still got to have enough room to have distance. Mike, what are we forgetting? I know you've got to go cover a hearing in a few minutes, but what are some of the big things that we haven't talked about?
Well, I'm not sure. These are some big steps. I think we've hit the highlights. These are some big steps people have been waiting on.
Right. We're getting another question too quickly that I've got you. Racetracks. Any idea about that?
Those remain closed. those fall under the long list of entertainment venues, bowling alleys, arcades, concert venues, theaters, tourist attractions, racetracks, indoor children's play areas, adult entertainment venues, casinos, bingo halls, and venues operated by social clubs. Those are all still closed.
All right, racetracks are, so I had several people asking. I know Steve asked the latest racetracks. Still closed. A lot of questions still on courthouses. Now, we did when the new Safer at Home order came out last week, or limited occupancy. A lot of courts were still not holding in-person hearings. If that's what several of you are asking about, then you need to contact your lawyer, contact that specific courthouse. Any idea on courthouses, Mike, other than the ones that we know have opened for things like marriage licenses, etc.?
As I understand it, the courthouses are under the rules of the state Supreme Court. They've been issuing guidelines on that, and their ban on in-person court hearings is still in place, as far as I know. Governor Ivey's order today did not change anything about courthouses, I don't believe.
So if you have a specific question about your courthouse, give your courthouse a call. There are some differences there. If you got a hearing, again, checking with your attorney or with a judge or the courthouse itself would be your best bet on that specifically. Talking again about some of these different entertainment venues, there's a long list of that. We will get that to you so everybody can know what falls under entertainment venues. And one other thing that I will ask you, Mike, because I know that you've got to go, recreation center activities specifically for the elderly. Any idea on those?
I don't think there was a change in that. Sorry, I'm not finding that in the order.
So we're gonna say no change on that here. We've got a lot of other questions. This is about somebody I think is new to the game, talking about beauty shops, barber shops. All these things are open on Monday, and with definitely restrictions and social distancing guidelines that the governor has provided. If you missed the governor's press conference that happened today at 11, feel free to watch it on our Facebook page here on AL.com. You will find it under the live tab, and you can find the video there. Or you can rewind this when we finish and watch me and Mike break all of this down. Mike has got to go cover another hearing here in a few minutes, so I'm going to let him go. But we will have all of this information for you available on AL.com about what will be open, what won't be open, and what's changing, what's not changing next week under this amended stay-at-home order. So if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to our social media pages, or you can reach out to me or Mike directly. We will definitely do what we can to help you. And Mike, thank you so much for your time. I know that you're a very busy man. And for everybody else, again, I will try to get to all of your questions. And if you have any that were not answered in the length of this video, let us know. And check out AL.com for the latest. So